Okay, I'm gonna start admitting folks into the room. And then yeah, we'll kick it off.
Excited.
Hey Sarah. Hey Betty. Hey Joanne.
Hello, everyone.
Where is everyone calling in from?
I'm here from Inglewood, California.
Yeah. We're gonna give it just like a few moments to let folks kind of trickle in, but then we'll get started.
Tucson. Nice.
Cool.
Hey, Jenny. Good to see ya.
Oh, we have Stephen with Sarah. Hey Tanya. Hey Elena. Lade, Corey.
Hey, hey. Welcome, welcome.
Corey's calling in from the woods.
Oh my gosh, it's snowing up in Minnesota already. Can't even think about it yet.
How's everyone doing? I think I'll get started with just like a couple bullet points up top. Welcome back, everybody. This is the second mindful poetry session for fall winter 2024, 2025. If I know like most of you have been to a mindful poetry virtual gathering. But if you haven't, Mindful Poetry Moments is a core program of the Well. And we bring in a wide group of collaborators, poets, artists, community leaders, mindfulness practitioners, to provide people a mindful approach to poetry. So if you're not familiar with how the session goes or need a reminder, we start out by meditating for a few minutes. We read a poem and then we hear a prompt. We write, and then finally we share. This is the format for this gathering and for future gatherings. But in April, when we have National Poetry Month, the poetry written for those sessions will be geared toward our sixth Mindful Poetry compilation. And additionally, to let everyone know up top, we will be recording this session, so people that are unable to attend are able to view. So yeah, if you would like to be edited out of the video in any way, if you share your poem but you don't want it in the video, just feel free to send me an email after this. So I think without further ado, I'm going to introduce our mindfulness facilitator. Today it's Krittika Sharma. Krittika is a compassion advocate, a writer, a behavior engineer, and the creative director and founder of Maji. Maji is an organization designed to enhance death literacy through the lens of connection, compassion, and consciousness, integrating and enabling well-being into end-of-life care. So I'll pass the torch to Krittika, who will kick us off with a mindfulness exercise.
Thank you so much, Patrick. And hello, everyone, and welcome to today's workshop. I hope everyone's doing well. Hi, this is my first time here, so I'm excited to be here, experience this wonderful gathering, and learn from it as well. So what I'm doing is I'm offering a small part of the death meditation that I facilitate to ground us for today's topic. I hope you're all seated comfortably, you're cozy, you have your tea, your writing materials, whatever you need, or have a lovely forest behind you, whatever helps you feel settled and engaged with today's session. We're going to begin with a chant to invite a positive and calm vibration. The chant that I'm going to recite is known as the mantra of peace. So feel free to close your eyes, feel free to go off camera if you feel like it's better, whatever makes you feel good. Take off your glasses. It's just time to relax for a few minutes. So the translation of this chant goes like this. From ignorance, lead me to truth. From darkness, lead me to light. From death, lead me to deathlessness. Om. Asato ma sadgamaya. Tamaso ma jyotirgamaya. Mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. And when you're comfortable, feel free to keep your eyes closed, stay off camera, whatever you feel comfortable doing, or have a soft gaze ahead of you. I'd like to invite you to take in some deep breaths, inhaling through the nose and out through the mouth. As you exhale, allow yourself to have an audible sigh, like an ah or an oo sound. So as you inhale through the nose, it would sound like, and then as you exhale, it would be a or a sound. Allow your shoulders to rest and drop. Allow your jaws to loosen up a little bit. Notice how your exhalations are longer than your inhalations. And as you breathe, allow your body to soften with each cycle of breath. So let's do 3 more rounds together or at your pace. Breathing in through the nose. And then letting it out through the mouth. One more breath in through the nose. Filling yourself up and then releasing it out through the mouth. Last and final one. Breathing in through the nose. Holding it just for a few seconds. And then gently releasing it through the mouth. Wonderful. Now allow yourself to come back to your regular breathing pattern when you're ready. Relax into it, softening your body, knowing that there are thousands of miles of this alive earth beneath you, supporting you, changing with you, expanding and contracting, just like your thoughts and emotions. We begin and end our journeys with breath. So I invite you to remember to breathe into that support and keep focusing on it as you experience yourself, your expression, and each other in the workshop today. Thank you for allowing me to hold this space for you. And I'm going to hand it back to Patrick. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Krittika. Our poetry facilitator for today, Shivani Gupta, is a poet, a curator, a behavior researcher, also a part of Maji, and an all-round vulnerability-loving human. And Shivani is also a longtime mindful poetry virtual gatherer. So I will hand it off to Shivani.
Hey everyone, it is so wonderful to see you all and so glad you decided to spend your Wednesday afternoon with us. The poem we've chosen for today is called The Refrigerator. And the reason I chose this poem, Patrick and I were talking about it right before you all lovely folks joined us, is that it has so many layers of humor and loss and longing, and so many things that we struggle to put into words. And so I hope the mindfulness exercise that Krittika led us into will allow you the space to absorb all those different layers of the poem. And I'm really excited to share this with you. So, Patrick, if you'd like to share your screen, I would love to read the poem, and then we'll have a couple of minutes to discuss, and then I will give you a few prompts. All right, are we ready? I hope we are. This one's called Refrigerator 1957 by Thomas Lux. More like a vault, you pull the handle out, and on the shelves, not a lot. And what there is, a boiled potato in a bag, a chicken carcass under foil, looking dispirited, drained, mugged. This is not a place to go in hope or hunger, but just to the right of the middle door shelf, on fire, a lit from within red, hot red, sexual red, wet neon red, shining red in their liquid exotic, aloof, slumming in such company, a jar of maraschino cherries, 3/4 full, fiery globes like strippers at a church social. Maraschino cherries. Maraschino, the only foreign word I knew. Not once did I see these cherries employed, not in a drink nor on top of a glob of ice cream, or just pop one in your mouth. Not once. The same jar there through an entire childhood of dull dinners. Boiled meat, pocked peas, and see above, boiled potatoes. Maybe they came over from the old country, family heirlooms, or were status symbols bought with a piece of the first paycheck from a sweatshop, which beat the pig farm in Bohemia, handed down from my grandparents to my parents to be someday mine, then my child's. They were beautiful, and if I never ate one, it was because I knew it might be missed, or because I knew it would not be replaced, and because you do not eat that which rips your heart with joy. Just going to give you a minute to sit with that. And I'm going to drop a couple of prompts and ideas for our discussion in here. And I would love to have a couple of you unmute, raise your hands as you feel comfortable. Any favorite lines, any themes that you got from that poem? Yes, they did. Poetry Unbound, and I think even Patrick Otama has got a beautiful reading and summary of the poem. A lot of folks have got the idea that it does represent the museum of space. And if you look at your space as a museum, what does that say about you? Of course, there's a lot of vivid imagery of food as well in this poem. I also have a lovely quote from Thomas Lux in the LA Times that I will drop in here, which is one of the reasons I picked this poem. But yes, would love to have anyone who has thoughts, favorite lines, what stood out about the poem to you.
I think that the image of the 3/4 full jar is so easily identifiable. It's kind of matched with the unopened jar of maraschino cherries that sits in a cupboard. Like there's just something, it's just the rest of the imagery is like, I don't know if I connect to the old refrigerator, but the 3/4 full jar of maraschino cherries feels like that's happening everywhere, that such jars exist.
Such jars certainly exist. I think when I first read the poem, I was around a bunch of poets, and we kind of went around the room talking about what was that jar when you were a kid. And for some folks, it was like novelty mustard, and for someone, it was like cocoa powder. But I think it's a fun recollection of what that thing was that was saved for guests or special occasions and never opened when you were a child. Yes, Stacy.
Thank you. The last task of love I did after my mother died was I had asked cleaning people to clean out her apartment, and they did not do the refrigerator because I didn't ask properly. So I had to go deal with that. And her refrigerator was a place of constant joy and confusion for the family because she was such a gorgeous cook, but the refrigerator was the grossest place in America. But it just feels, everything about this poem feels so like it was written directly to my heart of my memory of my mother. And also then becoming older with children, with a child who will ultimately have to clean out my refrigerator. It just makes me think of both the sort of the reality of a solo life as told in a refrigerator, and the evidence of hope every time I go to the store and buy something ridiculous that I never cook. So I love every bit of it.
I love that, Stacey. I think, yeah, it definitely, the more times I read the poem, I think the gaze kind of shifted from the one person standing in front of the refrigerator, and then like all the vignettes of many years of life with them and their grandparents, and not knowing where this even came from. So I think even thinking of the things in our home and the things in our fridge that we inherit and we don't really know where they came from, when they expire, why they're there, why we still have them. So I love that you said that. Yes, Deborah.
It reminds me very much of my immigrant family's past. The pig farm, they used to argue about who lived with animals, as a sign of who was more poor, where they came from. Oh, you live with the pigs in the basement, that kind of a thing. And it's kind of transformed from suffering into being just dull, maybe. He sees his existence maybe in a better place as being dull, and the exciting things of life are perhaps bottled up
Mm,
based on them bottling them up.
that's beautiful, Deborah. Do we have anyone else who had a favorite line, something? Yes, Elena.
Hello. When I read about the cherries, I thought about when I first moved here, there was a there was a little party and there was a big jar of cherries on the bar. And I was like, oh, yummy, that's nice. I'm very attracted to food. And these beautiful rubies were like glistening in syrup. So someone was laughing and said, try one. I said, okay. So I took one and it was moonshine.
Mm.
It was moonshine cherries. I had to be resuscitated because I don't really drink, and I was like, whoa, this takes getting used to. So I put the jar back on the cap, and the line I love is the yen because that's a whopper, And I was curious about it because I love food. I don't make excuses. I think it's one of the great pleasures that the Almighty gave us, And if you do it properly, sometimes I get overboard, but I'm getting better. So thank you for that poem.
Of course. Thank you, Elena, for your thoughts. Yes, Corey, go ahead.
So I read through it a couple times while everyone was talking. But there's an interesting thing happening in that there's like a weird set of perspectives within perspectives, because this poem must have occurred, like the noticing of this jar of cherries happened when this author was maybe what, I don't know, 7, 8, 10, 12, like young, right? But they're writing at whatever age an adult poet is when they're writing this poem. So there's probably a 20-year gap or so, maybe more, in between like the event of this poem and the writing of it and then the reflection. So you're like remembering this jar of cherries, but it's overlaid with all of these reflections and thoughts that have taken like 2 or 3 decades of life to amalgamate around it, which I think is what makes it interesting. Because if you're like a 12-year-old writing or writing a poem about cherries, it's going to be a very, very different thing than if you're like a middle-aged artist writing about a memory. And that's what I think makes it so intriguing, because we had that same jar of cherries in my fridge, and my poem about this jar of cherries would be slightly different. Like, I think I did just go in there and eat one every now and then. And they did get replaced occasionally, but it was like a long-term condiment. You know, we got a new jar of cherries like once a year. So there's something durational about it too that is like common between what my poem would be and this Thomas Lux thing. But I just really appreciate the like depth of time, that perspective of depth of time that's evident in this piece.
I love that.
There's got to be a line that I love too. I don't know. I don't know, the pig farm from Bohemia, that's pretty telling. That's like a whole frame around the thing right there.
I love that, Corey. I personally, yes, long-term condiment is something you should trademark, because I feel like there's a whole category of condiments that are very so an ode to the long-term condiment is a wonderful prompt, I might add, to our writing time today. But I think what you shared is exactly right. There's so much about the poem that has the innocence of a young person looking longingly at this shiny, set of red things, but then he's also using language like stripper red, which obviously a child does not know. And then you can also kind of tell that there is sort of a layer of maturity, right? Where he's talking about how he sees it as an indicator of what his family's socioeconomic status might have been like, what struggles they might have had, and that sense of preservation of them as well, whether factual or not, is something I think only a slightly older person reflecting on something nostalgically and maybe even resentfully and joyfully would have. So thank you for bringing up the duration and those images. Sarah and Stephen, would love to hear from you.
Oh, thank you. I'm enjoying this conversation so much. I was thinking about how a recent conversation I had with my brother Jay about stickers, like when you're a kid and you get a page of stickers. So my sister Emily and I would get identical pages of stickers, and hers would be gone within 5 minutes. They'd be all over the walls, given to her clothes, her siblings, whatever. Mine would be exactly the same for an entire year. They were pristine. And I just think about that last line, which I'm finding right now. It said, which everybody already has said they love, but you do not eat that which rips your heart with joy. It's like too perfect. I don't want to lose it. I have to keep it in this moment. And I don't think I'm even close to a hoarder, but I have a few things that I just cannot get rid of because they bring me so much joy, no matter how useless they are. And then that brought me to Patrick's comment in the chat about something that's non-essential, truly ornamental. And somebody who I've gotten really close to recently, I met her in an online writing group. I later met her in person, but I met her in an online writing group. And the first thing she wrote about was she's kind of a nomad. She moves from city to city, lives out of a suitcase. And she has this tiny jar of dark blue Japanese ink that she has never used. But she brings it with her everywhere because it's just non-essential and she needs it and it's glorious. So I just wanted to like kind of engage in this dialogue that everyone's is bringing me so much joy. I really enjoy the conversation and the poem so much. Thank you, Shivani.
Thank you, Sarah. I love the emotional support Japanese blue ink that we must carry around. I feel like every writer has that notebook too that they haven't touched and like lives for the someday where you magically become the best writer ever. But no, I think it's interesting. I love, Patrick, what you said in the chat about purely ornamental and completely irrelevant things. I remember Krittika and I have talked about this a few times, but my grandmother used to wear these sleeveless blouses and saris, and she used to wear them till they were like truly awfully faded, and they were not nice. And I remember we used to like talk to her all the time about how she, should wear something newer and would gift her clothes and she would continue to wear them. And right after she died, I remember we were cleaning out her room, and me and my mom and my mom's sister, who were probably the people who talked to her the most about this, were unable to let go of like a few of those that she wore the most. And it's just, I think, interesting how an object that to someone else would look old, irrelevant, unnecessary can be something that becomes, a totem to the past as well.
Shivani, I love the framing of thinking about objects being in a museum, because I think it's such like an interesting thing that like, if you give an object enough time, it accrues value. We find a comb from like 2 millennia ago, and it would have been meaningless back then, perhaps, but I don't know. It's the the quantity of like of time that something exists gives it value in a lot of ways.
100%.
I
I
don't think like the speaker of Lux's poem would feel the same way if it was a new jar of maraschino cherries, for instance.
Yes, yes, for sure. And I think there's also that element of like anticipated joy. I read Bryce's comment about the vinyl records and so many people talking about things that they have preserved. And I think so much has to do with the anticipation and not actually the consumption or the usage of the thing, but what you think it means to you, which I also thought was really, really interesting about this one. We have a couple of minutes before I start pasting the prompts. So if anyone would want to have like a last comment before, while I am pulling those together, I would love to hear from you. And then we'll have some time to write.
I'm going to quickly just say something. I think all these conversations, I think Shivani and I have had so many times, and we'd also spoken about what a museum of remembrance could look like. Because as you mentioned, Patrick, that we all have these beautiful objects, memories, and it can even be a recipe. It doesn't have to be an object which you can touch and feel, but it can be something that evokes memory. Or like Shivani was saying, in Indian tradition, we pass down so much jewelry, or we pass down, saris, something that's traditional. And before you know it, you're wearing your great grandmother's sari with your mother's jewelry, with something of your own, and you're holding so many stories together, which is really beautiful. And I think one thing that personally happened to me during COVID was, sometimes you hold on to a lot of things saying, I'll use this book later. This stationery is too precious to use. This ink is, I share the same story with ink and stationery. It needs, you need something so solid to use it for. It's almost like you need something very valuable in your life to put into it. And I think, especially during COVID, one of the things I started practicing was to say that if there's a candle, don't wait for company, light it right now. If there's a piece of jewelry you want to wear, you're in your PJs, it doesn't matter, wear it right now. And so it starts taking on a different meaning of not waiting, but enjoying it at the different stages. And it starts to tell these other stories because of it. And it becomes more special because you waited, but then you found new ways to use it than what you thought you might use it for. So yeah, just wanted to share that. Yes, I
Okay,
totally wore jewelry with pajamas.
gonna be an influencer for the pajama and jewelry movement from now on. All right, I want to make sure everyone has 10 minutes at least to write with some leisure. So I will quickly run through your prompts. If something strikes you, just go with it. You don't have to write anything that's there. But pick any one or a mashup, write what comes to you, or take a walk around your space and see what your jar of cherries is. Your prompts are: what is a place you go to in hope or hunger? What is the shape of your grief? A museum, a bird, a door, a road? If your room was a museum, what would your things say about you? What is lost? What is preserved? What was a simple thing you longed for as a child? And what makes a full life? We will be right here. Take your lovely 10 minutes and hope to see you back to hear from some of you.
I'll keep track of the time. I'm going to start it right now. We have a little less than a minute left. You could put some finishing touches to your poem right now. I'm trying to do the same. But now we have time to share. Shivani, would you like to call out anybody that wants to share their poetry?
Wow, that feels stressful to name someone. Is anyone feeling excited? Anyone who's ready? It doesn't have to be the masterpiece of your life, but we would love to hear anything you wrote. Every poem is every attempt is a poem. All right, we have Wade. Thank you, Wade.
All right. I went with what is a thing that might be missed and is not to be replaced. The tiny black case that wouldn't quite latch. Picture black faux alligator skin with cellulose handle. A thing from an era of makeup in jars, lead jars, for even heavier creams. It's lined in red faux velvet and riveted as if for train travel. Now a tape case, cassettes stacked end to end, recorded off library records, the tales of Theseus and the Pine Bender jammed next to The Hobbit. Now a history of drug use, my first tiny wooden pipe, turquoise and abalone, sad old screens mixing with proud new brass, and dust and shake, but mostly dust. Now empty, collapsed, and the latch failed under the pressure of TDX and Memorex and Howard Jones and myths and legends and headphones.
That was the full poem in 10 minutes. That was amazing. Thank you for sharing all the vivid details of that with us. We have Nina and then Sarah.
Thank you. I went a little bit left field, I think. Go to the bookcase instead of the fridge next time you're hungry. Take a book from the middle shelf. It's easy. Allow it to fall open. Feast. Read the words which catch your eyes, like a slice of strawberry cheesecake would. And then this is book quote. For lonely people, rain is a chance to be touched. A mist on her skin. Her father was away again. This was only 3 bites of the book, but I'm satisfied, full, and my mind, now recharged, follows new directions. Despite the sorrowful nature of the content I've consumed, I feel buoyant. I am older now, and am not lonely of touch. My heart was broken by Dad leaving. It is perhaps a reason I became an emotional eater. But here I am, 4 decades later, letting words fill these holes. I live in hope and am no longer hungry. There you go.
Thank you so much, Nina. I love that. And I'm gonna definitely go to my bookshelf instead of the fridge later today. Thank you so much for sharing. Sarah or Stephen or both.
Thank you. Stephen said he didn't want to read. I'm a little bit emotional from Nina's poem. That was incredibly touching and masterfully done. My museum table starts with the table. $6 back parking lot of Goodwill, 2018. I can't get rid of it because everyone else remarks upon its 1950s style and magnificence. Atop it, a Portuguese rooster brought back to me by a Goan friend, someone equally Indian, Portuguese, British, and American, but mostly ready to burst into raucous laughter at any time. A miniature music stand made of 2 treble clefs, holding an empty, ancient, tiny photo album. Nothing calls my Viennese grandmother to me more than this. A maraca. Chewy left it after one of those raucous dinner potlucks that devolve into dancing and drunken rounds of Uno every single time. A miniature decorative plate with the escudo of Valdecambra, that country town, my family homeland, that the hungry hordes of gentrifying Californians have not yet found in the north of Portugal. A teeny tiny red telephone booth that Gina brought back from London, from that trip she felt so guilty to have planned, but after which she regretted absolutely nothing. But the way they light up their streets with Christmas lights, she had texted in rapture. That mythical creature that her husband, Fernando, brought back from Mexico City, with the tail so thin and fragile, it's a wonder it came in one piece, wrapped in delicate tissue as it was. That miniature bongo that my sister Emily brought back from Egypt, lifelong dream to see the pyramids. Dreams, dreaming, dreams all throughout my museum. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. My God, you're all amazing. Sarah, I loved all the characters in your poem that you made so evident for us, and all the different selves and all the different moments the table has witnessed in your life. Thank you so much for sharing. Elena.
Hi again. I'm not sure which prompt this is, but here goes. I remember places and moments by what I ate. The first restaurant my father brought me to was KFC. The golden fried chicken with creamy biscuits and mashed potatoes that burned the roof of my mouth. I am still enamored by KFC, sustenance in a bucket. I come from a long line of food lovers. When mommy was alive, she used to iron this enormous ham so we have crispy bits. She would let the live crabs chase me around the kitchen floor before they met their doom. Filipino Basque hospitality was a way of life. These memories kept me warm before things got worse. Joy in the little things prepared me for the grief to come. Thanks.
Thank you, Elena. That was beautiful. I love the juxtaposition of the crabs and the involved food and KFC holding
That's a
space.
true story.
Loved it. Thank you so much for sharing. We have Jenny.
Hi, mine's called Popcorn Bowl. The cows that my grandfather milked, the milk that my grandmother churned, the butter that my mother ate on the popcorn my grandmother made. The legacies of care and feeding are born into open plains of corn, raised in love and other stuff, to hold on to something known to the people who grew me in the farm of their making. And when I eat from this bowl, I am still the field and farm. I am still the legacy of making.
Jenny, I was typing out your line as you finished. That was beautiful. I love that it took us there and it really felt like we were in the field and the farm with you. Thank you for sharing. Bryce, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, okay, there you go. I think I went with more of the museum route. I am my family's historian, and everything goes into the binder. Birth, marriage, death, mortgages, wills, but also pay stubs, utility bills, receipts for the family piano, turning paper scraps into museum galleries, finding patterns, rediscovering connections, scanning for hours through handwritten documents, all for most people to ask, why are you doing this? And I shrugged. Not quite sure, but some connection to my past, to the history of the world feels very precious. If I'm not remembering, then who will?
Family's lucky to have you, Bryce. That was lovely. We all need someone to be you. Is there anyone else? We have maybe space for, yes, Corey, go ahead.
Thanks. I don't know how to raise my hand with the little icon. I've been looking around. Okay, this is called In Hope or Hunger. Paul is all blue eyes and a warm smile in a button-down shirt, in a gray three-piece suit, in a black sweater with a gold chain at what looks like a birthday party. There's a photo of him with a motorcycle and a little bit of a beer belly, and one last one where he's cooking salmon on a grill. He went gray at 25 and hasn't looked back. He likes dogs and woodworking and is looking to meet each other with trust and respect first and see where it goes. We match, and he invites me on a date for oysters and a sauna. I accept on the condition that we wear swimsuits in the sauna. He replies, I always wear a suit when I sauna with company. In one last photo, he's on a boat, looking back over his shoulder, and I think he must be in love with the photographer, whoever it is. I'll never know. But if he ever looks at me that way, I'll be done.
Thank you, Corey. That was such a fun, fun and also a little heartbreaking roller coaster you took us on. I think we maybe have space for one more if anyone feels like sharing or even just maybe unmuting and saying how your little writing time went, even if you didn't write, what you might have thought about, how you're feeling.
I could quickly share.
Please.
So,
Yes.
this one was kind of inspired by the museum prompt, but I sort of like played around with it a little bit. This one's called The Docent. I could see the veins in his hands bulge like the roots of the oak. Those hands, the only instance of bare flesh besides pensive face. I see him here around 3:30 p.m., just after class. Heart often left rattled and shaken from Aquinas and my new medication. I watched the slow shuffle of the man in the park, hands folded behind him, attending to the piles of amber leaves and deciduous limbs, the loose ball from a missed goal. A docent, a collector of things piled new through the seasons. The cold bites, my heart skips, but I still see the shuffle drag before me.
Thank you, Patrick. Oh my God, the tree imagery was alive in that one. Thank you so much for sharing. I guess I'll pass it back to you for the last 5 minutes that we have. Thank you so much, everyone, for your generous time and all your interpretations and all the things you shared with us. I will hand back to Patrick.
Yeah, thank you everyone for sharing. All of the poetry is so beautiful. Thank you, Shivani, and thank you, Krittika, for providing our facilitation for today. If you would like to, be edited out of the video, feel free to reach out to me, send me an email at patrick@thewell.world. And in terms of upcoming virtual gatherings, we're not doing December, taking a little month break just to avoid the holidays, but we will be back in January 22nd, and we'll actually be facilitated by Elena, who's in attendance of this session today, alongside Kim Jennings, who will be the mindfulness facilitator. The poem is The Wild Iris by Louise Gluck, I believe. And it's going to be the same time.
It's glick.
Look,
G-L-I. It's pronounced with an I instead of a U.
glick. Thank you for the correction.
I'm sorry, I just do that.
No, I'm glad to know.
Took me a while to learn it.
Mm-hmm. And we're really excited for that too. And yeah, if Krittika, you want to share ways to reach out to you or Shivani, and then we'll finish off today with a final reading by Krittika.
Sure. I've just dropped the link to Maji, but I can also share my email address after I finish reading the poem, if that's okay. Yeah. Or Shivani, if you could maybe help with that. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Refrigerator, 1957, written by Thomas Lux. More like a vault, you put the handle out and on the shelves, not a lot, but what there is. A boiled potato in a bag, a chicken carcass under foil, looking dispirited, drained, mugged. This is not a place to go in hope or hunger, but just to the right of the middle door shelf, on fire, a lit from within red, heart red, sexual red, wet neon red, shining red in their liquid, exotic, aloof, slumming in such company. A jar of maraschino cherries, 3/4 full, fiery globes, like strippers at a church social. Maraschino cherries, maraschino, the only foreign word I knew. Not once did I see these cherries employed, not in a drink, nor on top of a glob of ice cream, or just pop one in your mouth. Not once. The same jar there, through an entire childhood of dull dinners, boiled meat, popped peas, and see above, boiled potatoes. Maybe they came over from the old country, family heirlooms, or were status symbols bought with a piece of the first paycheck from a sweatshop, which beat the pig farm in Bohemia, handed down from my grandparents to my parents, to be someday mine, then my child's. They were beautiful, and if I never ate one, it was because I knew it might be missed, or because I knew it would not be replaced, or because you do not eat that which rips your heart with joy.
Thank you, everyone, for attending today. We hope to see you in January in the new year.
Have a wonderful winter break.